Whenever somebody doesn't make a decision to buy something, it's because they have an incongruent desire for the thing they're thinking about buying. And whenever somebody does buy something, whenever somebody does make a decision to buy something, it's because they have a congruent desire. For whatever reason, they've been able to shift from an incongruent desire to a congruent desire. And as soon as we reach that tipping point from incongruent desire to congruent desire, that's when a decision happens. That's when a buying decision happens. So if you sell things to people, or if you want to sell things to people, or if you want to persuade or seduce people, understanding this dynamic is absolutely critical to figure out how to move people from an incongruent desire to a congruent desire. Well, how do you do this? Well, you can just copy what we do in our brains anyway and guide your customers or targets, persuasion targets, through the same process. Imagine the last time you bought something that you enjoy, but something that took you a little bit to get to the congruent decision part, something you had to think about. What is exactly happening in your subconscious when you think about whether or not to buy this thing? Well, you start off with an incongruent desire, and then you think about it, and as you think about it, your desire shifts from an incongruent desire to a congruent desire. But what is happening exactly subconsciously? Well, the way our brains make decisions is the same way we make all decisions. We think about doing something, and we imagine doing that in the future. And we try to imagine what the future will be like once we do the thing. And we say, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? And we also reference past decisions that are similar to this decision. This is what our brains do automatically. This is what your subconscious does automatically. You think about doing something. You think about buying something. And then you subconsciously or maybe consciously imagine having the thing. And when you imagine having the thing in the future, you check, is this a good future? Is this a bad future? Is this a good future? Is this a bad future? And you subconsciously reference all the previous decisions you've made that are similar to the one that you might be making now. And you kind of play around with these, and your brain bounces back and forth subconsciously, and this will coalesce usually into a congruent desire, a congruent decision. But when we do this by ourselves, our brains are kind of tinged with some ancient programming, an ancient better safe than sorry programming. Because back in the days of hunter-gatherers, if you were going to make a decision and you made the wrong decision, you could die. Your friends could die. So we're very, very careful about making decisions, even in modern times when most decisions are emotional and not dangerous. Even when we're buying something for $10, we still have this ancient better safe than sorry software running in our brain. And so how do you help your customers? How do you help your customers make the transition from an incongruent desire to a congruent desire? Well, just follow the same strategy. One thing that won't help is if they come into your shop, if you're talking to them on the phone, if you're in their house trying to sell them something. One thing that won't help an incongruent desire is by dumping in a bunch of information on top of them to try to put stuff inside their brain, by using sales psychology tactics and trying to box them into a decision. All of that will probably have the opposite effect. It will probably make them less congruent in their decision. That will validate their better safe than sorry mechanism in their brain. So turn off your desire to tell them what to do. Turn off your desire to show them why you think your decision for them is better than their decision for themselves. And just ask them questions. But ask them questions in the direction of how we make decisions anyway. Ask them questions about why they maybe want the thing. And make sure you don't frame it so they believe or they feel trapped that they have to get the thing from you. So say something like this. Well, you have a passive desire. You have a small interest in this thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So just imagine you did get this thing. Imagine you did get this thing in a way that made sense for you, and in a way that made sense to you. Maybe from me, maybe from somebody else, maybe today, maybe in the future. So get them out of the mindset of thinking they're constrained to get it from you on that particular day, so they can freely imagine the future. And once you get them to freely imagine the future of having the thing in a way that makes sense to them, then ask them, what does that look like? Because that's what we do anyway. We imagine getting the thing and we imagine our future with the thing. So get them to future pace themselves and imagine themselves in the future having the thing. What does that look like? How does that benefit you? What problems does it solve? Does that make your life better, a lot better, a little better, or worse? What does it look like 6 months from now? What do your friends say to you? What do you say to your friends about having this thing? And get them to really imagine what it would be like to have that thing without needing to go through getting it from you. And then reference some of their past decisions. What are some other things that you got like this in the past that worked out well? What are some other things you've purchased like this thing that you might purchase from me that worked out well? How do you make your other decisions? Because when we reference past decisions, when we remember past decisions, we remember them very, very congruently. We kind of reverse engineer our memories. We rebuild our memories to believe they are much more congruent than they were. So when you ask them about past decisions they've made, they will remember them being very, very congruent. And when you combine these two things, a future-paced idea where they have the product and it's in a 100% positive way where they think about it. They don't have to think about it buying it from you that day. And so they're positive on the product. They're positive in their imagination of the future with the product or the service. And they remember all their past decisions that are very congruent. That will create a very congruent now desire. And this is how you engineer congruence in your customers. Ask them to imagine having the product in the future, not necessarily through you, and just get them to imagine it in the best case scenario. And ask them about their past decisions that they made that worked out well. And that will combine to make them much, much more congruent. And this process will be very, very helpful in taking your customers or your persuasion targets from an incongruent mindset, an incongruent desire mindset, to a congruent desire mindset. And that will get you a lot more success in persuasion and sales. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.